Empire omo boy obiya ho nyama hise maame no gina nchen no sama maame no me maame na kan na mabo no ne onna ne ho yema hi wo empire omo boy nyina mu asa wonte Ghana ho o be gina papa we ni maka bom pa ka afre nyankopon se on strike ne down o to na o so na o yese mo se nya awurade nyankopon ti se ne nyankopon ye o gina so de mu na we abato ho a adwuma munim ye no asofo Ghana asofo mo hweye because na da na ya doso mon kan no kre nyankopon bible munye se no kase monye ese wo hwe ni panim kan yente krache ye to aba ma the last 7.5 years 8 years ewurami amamo na mabu na enye ntie nto aba ne mawo enti jaye na ko why can't you just say this kind of thing straight away now wo say gina ho say wo bompa ya ma ne say nyankopon me ne de Ubisa nkwase adwuma we ne nyankopon ye. Dabi Ghana asofo mo hweye. Asofo kukudam fo pa no. We nya kum chacha mo asofo bi ni o. Akese fo pa asofo akese pa kukudama. The whole Ghana for respect mo we nya kwanche asofo ni bi ni. Se kwanche asofo bi na Mamudu Bawumia akotene classroom bi. E na we ade we I have no problem with that. But ohwe we ma asoso akukudam fo pa na yes adwuma we. Omusuru so meka na kure. Because omunyi na omusuru. Otimemu no kreka ayamoden asofo akukudamfo no kreka ayamoden momwa man no omaman no entumpon unim no kre no o se wonka no kre no anyway fancy say woto abama Mamudu Bawumia so me president e wa wasem amenkan one or two messages bi aba Anthony Atoso Francisca says, so are they not living in the country? God have mercy on them. Francisca, I don't know. And I'm making maybe I don't want to Ghana. How? Papaya okita Mamudu Bawumia sa so no ye say would they? Amanya so na ye mobo. Millicent say, is it right for a Muslim to be doing this? Just asking. Oh, it is not right for a Muslim to be in the church doing this. The same way na any right for a Christian so sen kaboko Muslimi demo akoyewe. Me matena zongoda. When we were growing up, you don't even step there. You don't go there. Now, because of politics, and I did say, you can't have but do you remember, say, when Nkrumah more lead, I invited His Excellency John Dramani Mama Kohon, Mamudu Bawumia Kosereno, a friend say, Malam John was at the end, if you remember that. No, so na Kristo ni de o amane won Nkrumah program ase. Mamudu Bawumia na ne ogina so dem ayebo mpa man no. He was asking John Mama say, Kristo ni de o amane won Nkrumah so dem. Epacho Francisca said they should read Acts number 5. Epacho Acts chapter number 5. Epacho dey ne ho. Ye nko kan hwe man searching hwe. Me hwa de kure ho. Na Acts 5, but 5 no 5 there. Enti se obetimi akere mo ama fere ya ho. Owusu tougues Ghanaian youth should rise up against wicked government. Yes, because so what na say, was away babunu na say wo say wo onkasa. E do say kan igwananka. And a nation na ye building on so no. The youth no am working. One day you will come to take the affairs of the governance. Either you become a president, a minister, assembly member, DCE, obey a headmaster, obey the. It's like you can become anybody in the society. And this is money question as a way against say won kasa. But Obama yasia da asia ma won chene. Na wode akwa akoye ade a ensesenka wo no ufi se emmoa ewo wabraboma Also, that is why they don't take us serious. Because say, hey, adwuma moye, yenti na moye. Yenti na moye. Na say what na say kwa. Now that is why they've been doing all these kind of things to you. And what was me boss in Auto Rollins? Message be my member saying if I can also get the same message, then we all listen to in summer. Not doctors in Auto Rollins in that particular message.
Fourth uprising. It is a day of somber reflection because the conditions that led to the uprising are never far out of sight. And until we reach a point where those conditions that led to the June 4th uprising are no more present, we always stand the risk of repeating history. Ladies and gentlemen, as a member of Parliament, I stand here on behalf of the leadership of Parliament to also wish a happy anniversary, and not just to honor the memory of those whose lives were lost, but also to celebrate our presence here. I'm in Parliament today. We have a fourth republic today because the PNDC made it possible. And the PNDC was born out of the June 4th and 31st December. The blood that was shed on the following the 4th of June uprising must be a constant reminder of the ultimate price that others paid for values and principles to be restored. And it's not something we must celebrate. It is something that must serve as something on our consciences so that we do not lead ourselves into that situation where something of that nature can happen again. The years that we have enjoyed of stable constitutional rule are not by accident. The Constitution of Ghana was drawn up by ordinary members of this country who came together and decided what was going to be their version of the 10 Commandments. In the Bible, the Israelites traveled the wilderness for 40 years. In those 40 years, they complained. Why did Moses take them out? They had food when they were in Egypt. Did they ask to be taken out? They complained, why is it that we're getting this manna? It's so boring. We want meat. They asked why they were being brought away from that. The journey away from repression to your true liberation is not an easy journey. And there will be times when it will be difficult. There will be times when our leaders will have to shoulder the burden of responsibility and be brave enough for the rest of us. That is what leadership is supposed to do. And so if we find ourselves here today, in a country that has moved away from principles that we once held dear, that led a lot of people to sacrifice their lives, we are walking on treacherous path right now, and we must remind ourselves of those values and bring ourselves back onto the straight and narrow. Because the promised land was only made possible when the people remembered who they truly were. They were given the 10 Commandments, that is our constitution, to guide them as to what was right and proper for them to do. As we sit here and we have a parliament that passes the laws that are meant for the country, the enforcement of the laws is important. But as individuals, we must remember that no collective stands in isolation. Ghana is not Ghana without the people of Ghana. And therefore, the principles that we hold dear, we must not hold in abstract and say, these are the principles of June 4th. What are our principles as the people of Ghana? As individuals, when we wake up every morning, what are the things that drive us, that make us want to be a part of what we call Ghana today? How can we make sure that the blood that was shed before, that the sacrifices that people made was not for nothing? It is by being true to those principles, the principles that do not die, the principles that make a country great. Countries all over the world look back on their revolution days, whether it is the French or the Americans, and blood was shed. Let us not sit here in Ghana and pretend like those things did not happen. Those things happened so we can be where we are today. And it is not to celebrate death or bloodshed, but to remind ourselves of what happens when you push human spirit to a certain point, that point of a dignity that makes people become what they did not know they could become. If we look just around the corner, we see what happened in Liberia, we see what happened in Rwanda. They never thought they would end up where they did, but they did. Let us take lessons from that by God's grace and by the magnanimity of those who came before us, we never had to experience what Liberia went and may it never be so. Let us kindly live by those principles. Every day, every time we go to church, to the mosques, when we pour libation, when we pray, let it not be only for the prayers that we pray to God, but also to remember how do we live up to those principles in our daily lives, because that is the only way we can make sure that Ghana moves forward in a sustainable way, that we don't have people who are living below the poverty line who can then be deceived by those who have money when it comes to time to vote. People must have a dignified experience of life. They must be able to support themselves so that if somebody comes to them and says, if I pay you, vote for me, they will look at the person and say, I have my own money. I will vote for you if you represent what I believe in. We now have an opportunity to vote every 4 years. Let us vote on things that we know are possible. We are discerning. We know what is true and what is not. Let us be guided by those principles in our choices of members of assembly, of members of parliament, of the executive. Let us not think that it is just 4 years and it will pass. A lot can happen in 4 years. So every time we go to vote for people, let us remember these are the people we are giving the authority to do what they are meant to do on our behalf. Let's make sure our leaders are accountable. There is no such thing as our buying. We are the ones who put everybody in office, and they must be accountable to us. And if they are not doing what we have asked them to do, we must ask them to give account, and they must do the proper thing. Comrades, this is a day that, like our deputy youth organizer said, we must use it to do that important soul searching and to start anew. There's a saying that life begins at 40. Perhaps we should look at this as an opportunity to restore what we believed in once upon a time and make sure that the younger generation knows where we came from. When we look at our tradition and we have people who are elders in our traditions always telling the story of where their people came from, it is so that the generations ahead do not forget the history, do not forget where we came from. And yes, our history is not always something pleasant and it is not always something that makes us rejoice, but it is our history and we must not run away from the reality of where we came from in order to make sure that we build a strong path towards where we want to be, because the future is only secured when we are honest about where we've come from and where we are today.
These were the words of Dr. Zenato Rollins, charging the youth to take your destiny into your own hands. Uko jisika, sika bwane, na uko twaba, uo 4 years, wadebe weye hon kwa siyejuma. So we begin when him to Abamame. Now when me send in Yansasem, now can't just breaking the 8. Now we didn't video, and then you see the problem. I saw this particular video. I think it's in Sabomo or something like that. Hospital in Suetono, they had to drag the patients out. Yes, I sue you go also. And then this same patient, was he breaking the 8? Meanwhile, when John Dramani Mahama was building better hospital facilities for you people thought say you could vote him out and bring in this inept government. Senior doctors in Dr. Rollins Ekana, and that agenda 111 buying we share under Eiii Dr Bawumia when you are what they are not the way. But agenda 111 you see Edruhe. Oyare na hena woko. For area, they seek for better healthcare outside the corridors of Ghana. Area, can you also come here? But what an answer kind of questions in order. Because I want to answer my no do life a watch a scale. A kutiao. Obi or table cheated that the area utimia better healthcare. Now, what Ghana or area do you get the same facilities? But you for you, John Kuma, any example, Yanko Pomfani credit here. John Kuma, according to history or sources, no, area about 2 years or hospital Germany, the day John Kuma ba Ghana, Okodru in the constituency or Yari, he was about to be flown to Germany, saying, "Did you to the national airport? Like ever playing the number Germany." But between the Kurumo and Accra, when Timan survivor and look to the airport and for play, what arguments had an order? Never understand. I'm a member of parliament area. okwa bruchiri ba na hoto no na mo yare ya de to Ghana ambulance mi keke no wanu akra uye ambulance na nti manu akra at a point they have to stop somewhere because a kwan no kra na wo de ka nam so no kwan etimi kun we yetima munia. Some of us are not making noise because we need something from you. No, we don't need anything from you. But what that in what's me catch it. And the one who said politics in the ceremony, I oil Alhaji Wakomeka, agent as them now suffer. Because he just want to become president. Ayazan, matreke wayazan, unya president ni we are onsi hobiem. When him National Cathedral, you have play call Israel say kofa abo ene de beto National Cathedral Foundation. The pacho ecosystem. Sika na e was enka ye de support to wo daache o yara ye de ma better healthcare na te for no ene de for play call sa abo say the basic cathedral na dan tokuro da ho. Cathedral na adan tokuro da ho. So was our life near the teacher scale. And now Ghana life expectancy rate of Ghana a decline because unya be na papa ni unya su papa nom we yara healthcare papa be any ho kwan a onam so enye intutuo and now we use car Ghana enwisie no utu emission tax because so say emission tax no what do they actually use it for? Yeah no because I any fiscal jedi COVID-19 about yet you're paying tax on COVID-19. We are not daytime robbery. A chronobona being led by Eiii Dr Bawumia as Ghana's head of economic management team, boss no, at the whole butcher scale. Yet, or Kenny who are not by country says, a woman no be president or more tax amnesty. What a wow! A very, very, very insulting. I'm not playing it say Obi and answer for fun. I just want you to listen to Nipa Corona Wakano. And in Sema Wakano, then you make your own informed decisions. Say what to Obama and I want to Obama.
GRA and so many businesses and individuals are always in fights over their tax liabilities. And our tax system is too complicated. Sometimes they will bring a tax bill to a business or an individual and they don't even know how it was calculated. And they will tell you if you don't pay, we'll shut down your shop. And they shut down many shops. And so I want a tax system that is easy to understand, very easy to enforce, easy to comply with. I had my team do the research and we looked at all the tax systems in the world to see which is the most tax efficient and most tax competitive. We found that Estonia, the country of Estonia, was the most tax competitive country in the world. The last 10 years, every year they are number one. So I said, what is happening in Estonia? I took a team and we went to Estonia. I went to meet the president, the prime minister, the revenue authorities. We had a series of meetings. And I came back very convinced that Estonia, the model of Estonia is a flat tax system. Flat tax. If it's 10%, everybody is paying 10%. There's no complication in that calculation. It's 10%. It's like when we go to church and we have to pay tithe. Right? The tithe is 10%, isn't it? Everybody knows how much it is. It's easy to calculate. Sometimes you don't even need a calculator to calculate the 10%. So Estonia has found that this flat tax system has really helped them in making sure everybody is covered in paying the tax, because everybody knows that this is how much you have to pay. So you know your tax. There's no kululu in that matter. It's clearly defined. And therefore, next year, if by the grace of God I am president, we want to introduce the flat tax system. But to start it, I want everybody to start on a clean, fresh plate. Everybody to be on the same page. So next year, we will offer a tax amnesty to to all businesses, forgive all your taxes for businesses and individuals, and we will start on the same fridge for all businesses and individuals, so that we will get a lot of forgiveness. In fact, a few weeks ago, I went to the Vatican to have audience with His Holiness the Pope. And then after my meeting with the Pope, our Cardinal Peter Texin, who is there, took me around the Basilica to show me different parts of the Basilica. And when we were going around, there were some people doing some work somewhere. And I asked, what is going on here? Cardinal Texin told me, oh, we are making preparations for next year. It is the Jubilee year. I said, what is the Jubilee year? What does it mean? He says, well, this is the year where there's a lot of forgiveness in this year. I said, oh, that is good. Then that means 2025, I'm also going to forgive taxes in Ghana. And it is very consistent with the Jubilee year. So we will have that. And the tax amnesty will be a good injection to many businesses, because it will take off this burden of taxes that they are faced with at the moment, and it will really relieve them. And the next issue I want to deal with in our tax reform is our import duty regime. I found out that there is a problem that, maybe was inadvertently created over the years.
Enti, that was Eiii Dr Bawumia. Or say, Ghana's tax system is very complicated. Bawumia na economic patch. I did not say these kind of things. Now, so no bad president 2025. Waba Estonia. Abe who say Estonia was doing reforms, or Estonia is doing very well in their tax system. Enti, or not those reforms no based on Estonia no. Ghana. And it is true, Bawumia was recently in Estonia. But Finland currently, so Estonia is very close to me here. Until when he came there, whatever they said, whatever the meeting they had, you were Ghana for a while, we know them. You are Profuni, we know them. So we need Monsema a course. So Bawumia is telling Ghanaians, say, well, who's the Estonia tax system a flat rate? But on what the president in the chief for 8 years, Oman we never. Almost about 8 years, 60 good years, and 1 even fast reforms number. But Nyango Pompam good deal. Say, woman, a quite be president at 2025, or be implemented flat tax system in Ghana. Also, I said, maybe I said, I'm going to have to do it. I said, Mahmoud Bawumia Kaise, or the vice president. In this particular video picture, Mahmoud Bawumia, the Prime Minister of Estonia, in a general, if you have a picture, kama, Mami whoever Mahmoud Bawumia, in his suit, up on the tie, kama. Or say, they are so playing by Estonia between air tax system. And Mahmoud Bawumia, so not only team ever played ever Estonia, ever there, Estonia businessmen in the government to learn the tax system. I don't know where they play away. If I play away, we go school Estonia. Ghana for Dr. Kweku Munyine go. Went man from to do this research with you, but you take Ghana's whole plane, pack people in. Aba Estonia 3 days over and also be some say can't benefit from your tax. Now over president implementing the same thing. Oh, Ghana, I am more bothered. Ghana, I am more bothered. Etisika so come the another kind I no correct. Yes, am I kind of where she free with no reason. What she Ghana is Ghana. I said do whatever so many be president. And I did not the Ghana as vice president or the Ghana seeking in about Estonia by research no. Or no implementing it for now. But some man the man be president and no be implemented. Sometimes Ghana. If you do we know Ghana. Better say no way no. One got to just say chotu because people be end to no. That is what I know. If you do in Ghana for do na end to And I know very, very well someone talk about. Because when you listen to this kind of people talk, now do your machi, now talk about money we are what offer a chartered flight. As a sa delegation, I bet 3 days for Estonia, over here also be Estonia tax system. The whole vice president, the national security, DND, about Estonia.